Well, we've been going through a series over the past number of weeks at Pleasant Valley called God's Help in Hard Times. And we've looked at topics like waiting. Waiting is hard. We've looked at topics like suffering. We looked at the life of Job. I wish I didn't have to preach this message this morning, but I do. And hopefully you'll take good notes to help both yourself and to help others when those times come. We're going to be talking this morning about grief. And grief is more than just a loved one passing away, but that's going to be our primary focus for this morning. As we talk about grief, it's more. It could be the death of a dream, but specifically, we're going to be talking about the death, the passing of a loved one. So let's begin with a simple definition of what grief is. Grief is the pain we feel over loss. Grief is the pain we feel. It hurts us inside. Even though on the outside everything might look okay, grief is the pain we feel over loss. The reality is we're all going to face grief at some point in our lives. But I want to introduce something that I touched briefly on a few weeks ago. It's this idea of lament. In fact, there's a book of the Bible called Lamentations. A lament is the honest expression of our sorrows to God. It's more than grief, where grief can be self-contained or maybe to a few loved ones. When we lament, it's focusing our pain. It's an honest expression of our sorrows to God. And there we can read prayer journals of people, especially through the book of Psalms, as they are lamenting. We're going to be looking at one lament this morning from the life of David, Psalm 13. But a few more additional individual lament psalms could be Psalm 3, Psalm 22. We'll talk a little bit about Psalm 22. But then there's also the community lament. And that's what's taking place in a number of churches in Texas after the flooding. The church is coming together and corporately lamenting. Community lament psalms are 12, 44, 74, and there's other ones as well. But since you have your Bibles with you this morning, can I invite you to open them up or turn them on to Psalm 13. We'll look at Psalm 13. This is a psalm of David. And we'll read through it first, and then we'll take a loop back, and we'll see how David is modeling lament for us. David writes, verse 1, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord, my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death, and my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." We don't know the exact context of how and when David wrote this lament, this psalm, but we see that David is broken inside. Verse 2, sorrow in his heart. David is expressing grief. More than that, he's showing us the principle, the idea, the practice of lament. So what does that look like as we talk about lament? Really, there's four different components of a lament. Number one, it's all about turning to God. Where David just isn't, mumbling to himself or to his neighbors. He's turning to God. Verse 1, "How long, Lord?" David is turning to God. The world as it mourns, it turns to medicate pain, or it turns off the world, or it turns to self-help, none of which offers the best comfort. David here turns to God. Second part of lament is David pours out his pain. Look at verse 2. I wrestle with my thoughts, and day after day I have sorrow in my heart. David's being honest with God. God, I am hurting. I am broken. David's pouring out his pain. Jesus did this for us. Remember when Jesus was on the cross, he asked God that question, my God, why have you forsaken me? So Jesus turned to God. Jesus was pouring out his pain. Psalm 62 verse 8 says, trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. For us to lament well, to grieve well, we've got to feel it, and we've got to accept it. In the counseling world, they use this phrase, awareness is curative. As soon as you can say, you know what, I've got a problem, or this is a problem, as soon as you can address, and say that, you can find help for it. But if we live in denial and say, no, I'm doing just fine, when really we're not, then we won't get the help that's available. So pour out your pain. Thirdly, in lamenting, ask for God's help. In verse 3, David says, give light to my eyes. I sometimes phrase it in my dark and broken times, God, help me know that you are here with me. Maybe it's a sign of your goodness, and ultimately, the ultimate sign of God's goodness is the cross. But just, God, would you help me know that you're here? Give light to my eyes. Ask for God's help. Ask him for what you need. And then fourthly, the fourth component of lamenting is continuing to trust. Verse 5, David says, I'm in this chapter of sorrow, but I trust in your unfailing love. I mentioned that book of Lamentations. Here's what Lamentations 3:21 through 23 says. It might be familiar for some of us. It says, yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. That would make a great hymn, wouldn't it? Turn to God, pour out your pain, ask for his help, and continue to trust. David modeled that. That's a great practice for us individually and as a church. Well, I want to share with us this morning 8 helps in processing the pain of grief. We're all going to be in a time of grief at I don't know when, you don't know when, but it's going to come. So take good notes, number 1, so that it can help you, but number 2, so that you can help others. We don't want to talk about this, but we have to talk about this. Here's the first hard reality. Number 1, death or loss is certain. Thanks, Pastor Terry. That's a real cheery thought. Yeah, death is certain. It's unavoidable. It will happen. Expect it, prepare for it, and make sure that when it comes your time to die, that all you have to do is die. So live with short accounts, love, forgive. And for the Christian, if you've trusted Jesus to be your forgiver and leader, for the Christian, death is an upgrade. Paul, who wrote so much of the New Testament, said, for me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. If I'm alive, I'm going to live for Christ. But if I die, it's an upgrade. I'm gaining something. Death is certain. It's going to happen to you one day, and it's going to happen to everyone around you. Death is certain. Here's a second thought for us this morning. When death comes, you and I have a choice in grief. When it comes, and it will, you and I have a choice in grief. We can either mourn well, let's call that healthy grieving. We can mourn well, or we cannot mourn well. Let's unpackage what healthy grief looks like. When we're grieving in a healthy way, and this is the way harder part. It's easier in some ways to not grieve well, but to grieve well means that we're going to go through that pain of grief. We're not going to go around it. We're not going to medicate our pain in unhealthy ways. We're going to say, yeah, I'm hurting, and I need help, and I'm going to take one step at a time. When death comes, you have a choice. You can mourn well, or you can mourn in a not healthy way. Admitting or accepting that loss is the first healthy step. It's not bargaining with God. God, if you bring them back from the dead, I'll, whatever. It's just accepting. This is the reality. The person I loved has died, and they're not coming back. Let me say it a different way. In order to say goodbye, you have to first say hello. You have to first say, no, I am hurting. I did love this person, and now they're not there, and I'm broken, and I'm hurting. I'm saying goodbye first. I'm saying hello first. Hello, I have that relationship, and then I can say goodbye. I admit, I accept that reality of death. Jesus did this. He modeled this so well for us. Jesus had a friend by the name of Lazarus. And Lazarus had died. And Jesus knew what he was going to be doing. He knew he was going to bring Lazarus back from the dead. But let's just recap what Jesus was going through and his emotions and his choice in grief. It comes from John 11, verse 33 through 36. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. The shortest verse in the Bible, 2 words, Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. Jesus knew that he was going to be bringing Lazarus back from the dead, and yet he was honest and real with his grief and emotion, and he expressed that through tears. Jesus wept. And sometimes tears say what words can't. Jesus wept. He showed the pain of grief, the pain of losing his friend. Jesus also said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. So Jesus understands, he gets what grief is all about. Healthy grief comes from going through the grief, not avoiding it, not medicating it in unhealthy ways, but from going through that grief, from admitting, yeah, I'm hurting, I'm broken. Here's the unhealthy way that some process grief. In an unhealthy way, we bottle it. Put a cork on. I'm not talking about this anymore. I'm not even going to use that person's name anymore. They're behind me, but I'm not going to let them impact me anymore. We bottle it, or we deny it, or we become numb to it, or we do everything we can to move on. I mean, society has even said this phrase that just drives me a little bit bananas. Sorry for your loss. No, it's not my loss. It's my mom, it's my dad, it's my sister, it's my friend. It's not my loss. It's real, it's personal for me. In an unhealthy way, we try to move on. Nothing happened, I'm gonna keep life going. I deny it, I become numb to it. When we process grief in that way, I've used this illustration before, it's like holding a beach ball under the water. You can do it. You can hold that beach ball under the water for a while, But I guarantee you there's going to be a moment where you're not paying attention, and all of a sudden that beach ball will pop up out of the water, probably hit you right in the noggin, and make all kinds of splashes all around you. That's what happens when we don't process our grief well. It resurfaces in an unexpected way, in a violent time. It's surprising. We'll talk about that in just a second. The ambush of grief, but when we don't process grief well, that's what results. Psalm 61 verses 1 and 2. The author says, "Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." So unhealthy grief, we try to go around it. We try to ignore it, to deny it. To those who are thinking, it's easier to do that in some ways. And time heals all wounds, right? Wrong. Time does not heal. You might have that time, you're holding that beach ball under the water, but time does not heal all wounds. And when it surfaces, it's going to be just as real as it was the moment that grief began. So there's a choice in grief. There's unhealthy and healthy grief. Here's a third thought for us. No one grieves perfectly. No one. No one grieves perfectly. Grief is, at the same time, it's universal and it's unique. You're going to grieve different than I will grieve. And we should be expecting waves of grief to hit us, sometimes in unexpected times, unexpected ways. It could be a song that hits us, and then we start, weeping. That grief surfaces. It could be a smell. It could be a memory. No one grieves perfectly. Here's a phrase that might be helpful for us. If I don't let it out, your grief, if I don't let it out, I will act it out. If you don't let your grief out in one way or another, if you don't let it out, you will end up acting it out. Isaiah 55 verse 2 says, "Why spend money on what is not bread and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare." So here's the deal. If I numb my pain, if I medicate my pain with alcohol or weed or work or relationships or food, the pain will still be there after that case is empty, after that bag of weed is smoked, after that tub of ice cream is done, and now you're developing another problem that impairs you from dealing with the first one. That's what happens when we medicate our pain in unhelpful ways. If I don't let it out, I will act it out. And again, grief is unique. We all mourn in different ways, in different intensities, and for different lengths. Grief is unique. So, not everyone is going to be grieving the same way that you will be grieving. Because of that, here's a phrase that I want you to never forget, especially as you're comforting someone else in grief. Comparing never comforts. Comparing never comforts. Well, I know what you're going through. Well, no, you don't know exactly what they're going through. You don't know the nature of relationship. Comparing never comforts. So as we've been given this job of comforting others. Comparing never comforts. Paul wrote these words that aren't specific to grief, but do apply to grief as well. Galatians 6 verses 4 and 5. Paul writes, "Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. For we are each responsible for our own conduct." Two things happen when we compare. It either leads us to despair, like, oh, doing terrible, or it leads us to pride. So don't compare, and especially in times of grief, comparing never comforts. Grief is not our identity. Sometimes I hear it and kind of cringe a little bit. Well, I can't serve, I can't care for anyone because I'm grieving. And let me just say, yes, the early stages of grief will seem overwhelming, but you will get through them. Grief is not an identity. We are broken people going through a broken world, but Jesus is our identity, not our grief. But comparing never comforts. Is that clear? Okay. Number 4, God knows and cares about our pain. God knows. He knows and cares about our pain. He knows what it's like to lose someone that we love. God knows and cares about our pain, and if it's on our mind, it's on his heart. He cares. 2 Corinthians 1 verse 3, praise to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God is grieving with us. Psalm 16 verses 8 and 9, I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. No wonder my heart is glad and I rejoice. My body rests in safety. God knows and cares about your pain. And sometimes he's just waiting. Child, would you just talk with me? Would you just be honest and say that you're hurting and broken and grieving too, and ask for my help, and I'll come running. I'll be like that Kool-Aid man, break through the walls. I will come and give you the comfort that you want and that you need. God knows and cares about your pain. Here's the 5th help in processing the pain of grief. Grief takes time. Grief takes time. You get through it, but you never get over it. You get through it, but you never get over it. For those who are grieving, I remind them it's going to be a year of firsts. It's going to be, the first birthday, the first Easter, the first Christmas, the first Thanksgiving, and they're all so hard. You never get over it, but you do get through it. Grief takes time. That's why we just go one day at a time. And there's, in the counseling world, they call it emotional hijacks. We talked about this a little bit, where a song or a smell or something triggers something, a memory in our mind, and we just like, what is this warm, wet, salty discharge coming from my eyes? And it's like, I'm remembering, I'm grieving that person. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1, 2, and 4 says, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Grief takes time. Well, Pastor Terry, how much time? I don't know. As long as it takes. Weep as long as the tears are there. They won't be there forever, but you'll never get over it, but you will get through it. Here's the 6th help in times of grief. Grief needs community. Grief needs community. Relational pain is healed through other relationships. Remember I said earlier, if you don't talk it out, you'll take it out. We need to talk to one another. We need that community. And there is a great group. We don't have a group meeting here at Pleasant Valley Church, but I think there's 3 in the city that will be restarting for the fall, called Grief Share. It's a group of people that are broken because of grief. And they're coming together and they're sharing that grief, and they're finding great help and healing and hope and comfort from that. Now, no group is going to be perfect. Some groups are big, and so every person has a little bit less time to share. But grief needs community. Galatians 6:2 says, share each other's burdens, and in this way you obey the law of Christ. I like the way the NIV says it. It doesn't say share your burdens, it says carry your burdens. You know, there's someone that can come alongside and say, hey, you've got a heavy load. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to do everything I can to help you carry that load. Philippians 2 verse 4 says, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Romans 12:15, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. And then 1 Peter 4:9 says, offer hospitality. See that word hospitality? We get the word hospital. Offer hospitality, be a hospital to one another without grumbling. Oh, the parking, I got to drive all the way over there to comfort them. No. Offer hospitality, be a hospital to others without grumbling. Grief needs community. Here's number 7, help in the processing of the pain of grief. It's our part, and I've kind of divided this into 2 parts. Our part 1, is turn to God. Turn to God. Part of that is the lamenting. The more you know God, the more you'll love, trust, and obey him. The more you'll find him to be that anchor in your life. He loves us. He comforts us. Our part, turn to God. Or you can grieve your way, keep that beach ball under the water. That's a choice that we have. But I think a far better way is to turn to God in grief and lament. Psalm 9, verses 9 and 10 says, the Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. Those who know your name trust in you. For you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you. So turn to God. And if you've never trusted God to be your forgiver and leader, man, that's the best starting place. Remember I said earlier that for the Christian, death is an upgrade. For me to live as Christ, to die is gain. That begins when we receive Jesus as our forgiver and as our leader. Turn to God. But then there's a second part of our part. And it might seem kind of like strange and weird, but it'll make sense in just a second. Love and serve others. So turn to God in your grief, but don't stop there. Show that love for God by loving and serving others. We talked about this around Easter time, where Jesus did this so well from the cross. This past week, I talked with a grief specialist. I said, what's one big thing that you would encourage people who are grieving to do? And she said instantly, start serving. Start serving. Start getting your eyes off of yourself and onto others. The Bible tells us that as we refresh others, that we ourselves are refreshed. And we don't have an option here as followers of Jesus. I must meet others' pain even when I'm in pain. I must meet others' needs even when my needs aren't met. And the world would say, no, just take care of yourself, focus in on you. Jesus says, no, that's not my way. Jesus says, don't look out for you. Get the focus in on others. And didn't Jesus do exactly that from the cross? As Jesus is hanging on the cross, he's talking to John. John, would you take care of my mom now? Jesus was saying, John, I want her needs met, and I can't meet them. But you can. Love and serve others. Now, if you look for excuses for not helping, you'll always find them. Well, I'll help when this happens. Well, I'll help if, I'll serve someone if this is happening. Can I encourage you, take that line of thinking and throw it back to the pit from where it came. That's not Jesus' way. Jesus' way says, yeah, you're hurting. You are hurting. But serve others. 1 Peter 4, verse 1 says, so then, since Christ suffered physical pain, you must arm yourself with the same attitude he had and be ready to suffer too. For if you are willing to suffer for Christ, you have decided to stop sinning. So part A, turn to God, receive his help and his comfort, but don't stop there. God comforts us so that we can comfort others. How is it with your soul this morning? Have you ever lamented before? Have you ever taken the time to turn to God and say, God, it's you first and foremost. It's not anyone around me. I'm not God, it's you I'm looking to. And pour out your pain to him and ask for his help and continue to trust. Have you ever done that? Would you like an opportunity to do that even here this morning? You can. We all can. On the screen behind me, in front of you, you'll see what it is to lament. And so right from where you're sitting this morning, let's take the next moment or two. I'll invite our worship team to come up, and Ben, if you can begin playing our last song. But begin by these simple words, God, I'm mourning because, and you list why you are mourning. Maybe it's someone, maybe from decades ago that passed away. I'm mourning because, and I ask for your help, and then finish it with, I trust you. Let's take a few moments just quietly and together to lament. Would you join with me? Let's take the next few moments in quietness. There's freedom coming. For those who we're talking with God and going, God, I haven't talked with you for a long time about this. But God, you know I'm hurting because of this person, because of this situation, and I'm asking for your help. And I trust you. That honesty with God is freedom giving. It's allowing God to say, thank you, child. Thanks for being honest, and thanks for asking for my help. And that help is on its way. And so if I or we as a church can be of comfort to you, maybe you're broken and hurting this morning and just needing to know that God is with you. Oh man, I'm in. We're in this together.